What is a project management? Let's start with the basic, we'll just brush up our basics. So when we talk about the project management, we have all been there. The project seems to be going along fine, although if we are completely honest that it is failing a bit, and also mentally just we don't keep a extra, because it's not humanly possible that we can keep track of each and every single item, but mentally keeping track of all those little items that you need to make sure get done. Then the client calls with a set of changes. It's a dynamic world. So project management becomes very heavy because of these changes. Because if it is just a straight set of requirement, project management is very easy. You're excited as you think they are getting it, and so you get stuck in straight away. A week later, you're dreading that how it's going. You call because you have no idea anymore. You're lost amid or in this whole delivery. You need project management. So basically, why we need this whole field project management? We can just get the client requirement, and I'm talking especially about the software part of it. Like if you are making a software a product, so just we can take a client call, we can make it we can just work on the design, we can deliver it. It doesn't happen because of the changes, whether it is in the software or also when it comes to the manufacturing. We have, when it comes to the different domains, we have different issues when it comes to each domain. So that's why you need a project management. So when it comes to the project management, it definitely, all of us are aware, we have to balance time, scope, quality and cost. So when it comes to an official definition of project management as per PMI, it defines the term as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. That means you're applying these tools, skills, and to achieve your project goals. That's what a project manager does. A more tangible description is that project management is everything you need to make a project happen on time and within budget, within the and also deliver within the scope and the needed scope and quality. So when it comes to time and budget, so and also the scope and the quality, the time and budget, I'm sure all of you are aware what is the time and budget, right? The time and budget, like let's use this arrow. So time, when we can't talk about the time, that means the client says that you deliver within this time, you have to deliver. Is it that simple? In practical scenario, you trust me, I have handled projects wherein whenever the time, the date is given by the client, at that time I never had that right resources to with the same skill sets to deliver the project. So that's why the project management becomes complex, right? And then the scope, is it the scope always remain, the requirements always remains the same? No. And quality is altogether a different issues, because nowadays the organization all of the organization are facing quality, because when we have to balance the time and scope, most of the projects nowadays are driven by the clients because of the high competition. And when the sales or the BD team bids the project though, so the timeline is very tight, they required project very early. So at that kind of TIFF, the quality becomes an issue, because at that time to get that kind of resources and deliver, it becomes really difficult. And cost is of course the budget within, so that you are delivering a profitable project to your organization gets profit out of it. So when we talk about the scope, it refers to the list of deliverables or features that have been agreed. These are the features. For example, you are delivering a ERP program. Then the client can agree that I need these transaction, I need these transaction screen, I need these kind of features in the interface, so which is helpful for the user. So when we talk about the quality again, and there are now the organizations are more, they are moving towards a lot of certification like ISO and CMMI, so that there are external audits, so that when the product or the services given to the client, or whether we talk about the FMCG, because ISO applies for all the field, so they are going towards these certification, these documentation, so that we as an organization are following certain standards and also delivering high quality product or service to the client. So when we talk about the four different parameters, the balance is must. There are a inter a relationship we should know as a project manager, and the balance is a must. But when it comes to the actual implementation part of it, I know the balance becomes very, very difficult, because either I can give you a case study from my example. Like, I have handled a project, ERP project, where it has been a complete, it has to, we have to just scrap up the old framework which was in the obsolete technology as an IT project manager, and I have to build a new framework and deliver the whole complete application. So the problem with that was that the deadline was given by the client. So in this situation, the time was fixed, and delivering that kind of quality, cost, and all those parameters becomes very difficult, because in that particular time you have to just find out a right team, and then work upon it, and also you have to see that you're not overshooting the budget of the project. So these constraints that I am sure all of us would have faced in some or the other projects, we'll see how to handle these with expert project management. Then comes the understanding the project life cycle. The generic project life cycle is fairly simple. When we say that we are following the SDLC, it is planning, then there is part of it's just, I'm just keeping it simple. It's not yeah, PMI has different phases, but here as a general project life cycle which is followed in every company or any small companies, if we follow CMI or not, if we follow ISO or not, it has a three phases. One is you plan, then you definitely execute it, and the controlling is kind of, if it is moved to a support or execution, the controlling comes into place. So basically it starts with an initiating, then planning, then executing, then controlling, and then it goes to the closing phase. Most people spend most of the time working in the executing and controlling phases, actually doing the task, building the product, and making sure everything is on track. Because if you execution is very, very important, that we will see later, where that's how in execution, as a project manager, in the execution, you have to when it comes to the expert project management, if you see all the successful project managers who have delivered good amount of successful project, definitely they will have one or two failure projects, but when we see about a successful project managers in any organization, then they definitely know how well to execute a project, because there only your major times goes in, and in those phases you are no more an expert project manager knows that he or she has to display the leadership abilities. It is no more just you just call somebody and just assign the work and it gets executed. It never happens, because trust me, we are dealing with people. We are not just dealing with the stationary resources. So when it comes to the, we need to understand the project life cycle. Why? Because where we are going to be, because many organization have many project managers in one project. So they may not involve you in execution, they may ask you to control track the project. So you need to understand in the project life cycle, what is the project life cycle of your project, and where your contribution is, and where you want to where you are going to spend most of your time. And then comes identifying stakeholders and getting things done. It is really a very, very important part. I won't say that it is a basic of project management. I will say that these two parameters are the building blocks of the project management, because you are managing a project, and definitely if you are managing a project, right? So you think about, I'm just giving you an example. Whatever organization you are in a bigger organization, you are in a smaller organization, you are handling a small project or big project, you just think about it. I'll just ask you a question and think about just do a mind map that, like, when we come to definitely when it comes to project management, at some point of time, maybe you have lot listed in the Excel, but at some point of time you would have been identifying stakeholders, because here's what the main job of a project manager is. Like, you need to see, there are you might, if it is a big project, it becomes a very complicated situation, because you will have many stakeholders. Then you have to prioritize, you have to section, like this is how the communication will flow. Like, I will talk to these top peoples, where I will, you have certain set of conversation, and also you will gauge their expectations. And maybe your team members, your team leads will talk to certain set of clients. So these kind of identifying stakeholders. And also I'm saying it is very important, because as a project manager, nowadays all the organization, whether small or big, they want you to get more business to the company through the project you are handling. So it can happen that you are dealing with one client, and in the same organization, they have the potential, if you are delivering very good quality product, that they will give you more project. So that's why the identifying stakeholders and managing the stakeholders are definitely the basic and building blocks of the project management. And definitely then comes getting things done. I'm sure, like, if you don't want to lead a project, or if you don't like to, if you don't know how to get things done, then I don't think we can become a good manager, because this is a basic requirement that you need to understand others, you need to grow up them, treat you should be like a mentor to them. And then when the people, because at the end, people will see what is there for them, if they deliver a project, whether they will get promoted, or all these things. There are little motivation factors also which comes into the picture. So when it comes to the getting things done, or the then that is also a basic primary skill of a project manager. I want to give you an example in identifying stakeholders and basically knowing your stakeholders. I once worked on a project that was meant to deliver a new software program to a team that collected data from different supermarket and turned into reports. So I think you can imagine the amount of interactions are involved in such projects. The designer was intent on making the program as user friendly as possible, which was definitely a big aim, but sad, a good aim. Definitely, all the clients want it to be very, even the client wants the interfaces to be the user friendly. So we should also aim as a good product. We should, talking about the software, we should make our screens very user friendly. But sadly, his definition of usable was significantly different from that of the actual users. So many a times, I'm very sure that this is a practical issue faced by all of us as a project manager in some point of time, where we will have a interface in the client's organization, and sometimes there is a disconnect between them and their end users. Usually what happens, the person will be in IT projects, the persons are always from the IT department of the client organization. So it can happen that they themselves have a disconnect with the users, or they are new to the organization, they don't know the business of their company. So it becomes a disconnect, because for you can't talk to the end users directly, because that's how the protocol in most of the organizations are followed. You usually have an interface, they talk to their end users, and then you get the requirement from this interface, or your client face of the, so that's how it happens. So the designer had focused on making the software so simple that anyone could use it, even a no voice, when in fact only a very limited number of data entry clerks were going to use it. They were rather upset, discover they weren't to be consulted, and quite disgruntled when they were presented with a system that it appeared would make their work take 4 times longer than before. So basically it turned out to be opposite. The reality was that for them, speed was the most important factor. Ignoring these stakeholders led to disastrous consequences for the project. The entire design was scrapped, and 6 months' work had to be redone. So that you can imagine the amount of the rework, the amount of the cost which has been impacted. So this story, what it tells, that basically sometimes the end users, because at the end of for a IT project, the end users give you the approval because they are going to use the system, and that's how the IT or the technology makes their life easy. But sometimes what happens, the end user is never in the picture while developing the whole software. Then it turns out to be very, very disastrous, because they may have certain primary requirements, for example, the speed. So, but while designing, the client interface would have told you something else. We need to design it simple. So it turns out to be disastrous because the design is not on the speed, the design on the looks of the interface, or make it on the usability part of it. So it happens, it shows a very clear requirement mismatch and a communication problem. So that's why identifying the stakeholders and knowing your stakeholders, that's why many company, they usually they send some people for the on-site to the client's place, sit with the end users, they just collaborate for the that's how the agile project management has come into the picture, like wherein it's more about the collaborative approach, which mostly gives you success because you're aware of the user expectation. And one more thing is, failing in the planning phase can be equally disastrous for your project. I'm sure these are the basic project management thing. One is failing because you are, as a project management manager, should be aware of what is to be done, what is priority, what is not the priority. If you don't plan at all, how will you know what you should be doing next? Similarly, planning once the beginning of the project and expecting just be able to follow that is really dangerous, because things are not always the same. So that brings up to the our next, we'll see that into the in the next to next session, where we'll see what to plan, why to plan, and how to plan. So definitely, when it comes to the planning, the best planning approach tends to be one that lets you plan the project's immediate future in detail. Don't you think so? I'll give you a single example, that when it comes to the planning, don't you think so? Like, we also do it in the personal life. We don't plan it for months, for so we take it's always better, and that too in large project, to take one step forward, because it is easy to do it instead of just planning a whole huge thing and then failing. Very, very important that you take one step forward, be practical, and that too, if you're trying new approaches, it's very important that you try it in a very smaller level. And this is known as a rolling wave approach to planning. The deliverables for the next 3 to 4 weeks are broken down into sections so that it's possible to keep track of the project's progress on day-to-day basis. Anything further off than a month is left unplanned as a high level deliverable, so that you can keep an eye on what lies ahead without become overly focused on the minute details. Not paying proper attention to the closure of your project can be just as problematic as poor initiating or planning. If you think your project is finished when you finish the building the product, then you are definitely, it has to be, proper closure, proper initiation, and then proper planning. All these comes as a on the basic project management. But what is an expert project management, that we will see later. Like, it is about detailed planning, focus on details, and motivating the team, because it's more, the execution is major part. So for the execution, you definitely need how to motivate your team, and also make them as a, and definitely use all those principles of team building, and you enhance your teamwork, and you have to build that feeling in your team that it has to be a teamwork. Because any project, whether it is in manufacturing, it is any project, it can't be just one single person can just complete it. Even it comes to sales and marketing, it's a team effort. Your team is going to put those efforts to get the project closure with the success rate high. So that's how this goes in. Now we will see what are the perceptions, negative perceptions about management. Some perceptions are like, it is boring, The first misperception is that project management is an incredible boring distraction from real work. I am sure the technical people, the core technical people, they can. I have always met those people where they say that it's boring because it is better to just do alone the technical design than just managing people. Whatever your current vocation, you are probably engaged in it because you enjoy it and are good at it. Taking time away from what you normally do to focus on a project management just doesn't feel right. I'm sure all of you can connect because we have some or the other team members, or in some point of time, at some point of time, we ourselves would have thought, what is this? You have to, in the initial stages, you have to just deal with this Excel data. That's it. So, at the very worst, we should agree that the project management is sometimes many people, I have seen, they think that project management is just Excel. Yeah, it's just data. It does nothing creative. There is nothing creative. There is nothing new, innovative. But I'm sure, like, it is much more than that. And all of us, when we become an expert, when we spend some time in managing projects, that do different projects, I'm sure all of us will agree that it is an art. It's not easy to balance the four parameters so easily and make a project success. It takes huge amount of time to become an expert project management. But trust me, like, there are certain skills. If you master those skills, then it doesn't make. I have seen people who have three in IT industry, people who have 3 to 4 years of experience, they have also become an expert project management manager. So it's not about just time, or it take 14 to 15 years to become a project management. Personally, I believe that anyone can pick up project management skills and apply them in a useful manner. You know why? Because I can justify you with an example. Don't you think all of us, in some part of the other, if you're in the personal life also, we are managing some of the other projects. It does need not to be a normal corporate project from IT or manufacturing. That in some most of the cases, like if we are managing our finances, it's also a kind of mini project. If we are managing our kids school and other activities, daily routines, it's also it also have a goal, and it is also a kind of management. So in some or the other, we are using, as a person, we are using our management skill. Then why then this project management is scary? Have you ever thought about it? I just want to note, it's just to make it more interactive and interesting. I want you to make a note of initial, when you were handling the projects initially, what were your negative perceptions about this field management? And I'm sure that I'll ask you this question again after you have gone through these recordings and these trainings, like, because it's you will realize that it is not that difficult and it's not that boring once you know the practical sides of it. And also, I think, I don't know, it is a very very practical perception people, I don't know, not practical, basically a person people have is that it is just a project managers just deal with Microsoft Office, like Excel, PowerPoint presentation. So I think it is, I'm sure we as a project manager know that it requires much more effort than that. Then definitely there are another negative perception that it is too hard, because it's about the responsibility. It is about the dynamics of the project, because one day the client will come to one change, the other day the clients will come with other changes. So it is not very easy. I agree that it is not very easy, but it is not too hard also. Like any other profession, project management have certain principles and nitty-gritties, and if we master that, we'll become an expert project manager. We have seen the basic project management. What are the negative perceptions of the project management? And I'm sure as project managers, you're aware, because in worldwide, every company is different, and every people have their own perception about the management field. And I'm going to tell you that even as an experienced project manager, I just wonder, initially in the beginning, usually I used to also have, because I'm in the so I'm in the software field, and when I was like a team leader, and I used to have a lot of perceptions which were not true in practical sense. And now the world is going digital, and so there are a lot of changes in this field. There is a lot of changes which will come in future. So but there are few basic things which is which leads to a expert project management. So when we talk about the basic foundations, again, I'm stressing on this because the planning, the estimation, and all these things you can definitely get from other courses. But when it comes to the people management, and when it, because at the end, whether whatever domain you are handling, whether it is a manufacturing domain or whether it is a real estate or any domain, at the end you are managing people. And I'm sure people are totally different. And when you want to work as a team and you are the leader of the team and you have a specific goal, any project you take, then the expert project management means you are getting the team along with you with your project goals. That's the basis of the expert project management. And definitely there are, I'm sure you might have templates in your organization. You can learn about the nitty gritties of the project management through various tools. But there is something with the experience comes is the detail, because you need to understand what are the details which is very specific to each project. So one is detailed and careful planning, another one is leadership skills. I'm definitely saying about this. One is detailed planning and another one is leadership skills. I think all of us will agree when we handle people and just acting, and I'm just giving you an example. If you are going to handle the project, and I can just give you an example in software field, for years, like some projects run for 4 years, 5 years, then just having a task oriented approach, you just call people. Just think about it. You just call people and just give a daily routine task. Is it going to help? I don't think it is going to help, because the dynamics of the project is such that, and in reality, people leave your project and leave the organization. So there are a lot of things which comes in, and there are typical behavioral styles of the people, and then you need a leadership skills. Then only you can promote to the next higher level in your organization. You can gain a experience in the project management field, because at the end, just maintaining excel, just maintaining the data is not a project management job. If you're maintaining, then yeah, in some projects you will be successful, but you need expert judgment for decision making. You need an experience, definitely a leadership skills to handle different type of projects and project teams. Basically, in some teams, the behavior of the people of the team will be totally different. So all these things we'll see in detail. And definitely the another one point is master in execution, because execution is the major chunk of a project management. Yes, you do a good planning, but if you fail in your execution, then definitely the project is going to fail. So major part is when we talk about the planning, leadership skills, and master in execution, we'll see all these with a case study. And first we'll see about the planning, then we'll see about the team building, how to build an high performing team, effective team. Because yes, we can do work, even simple day to day task also we can do. But when we come talk about experience, we talk that we are expert in those tasks. It only comes when we definitely have details about it, we plan it very well, and we execute it very well. There are certain principles in the project management, that is when we talk about the underlying principles of the project management. So I think, I'm sure when we talk about principles, so it's apart from the planning and leadership skills and execution, we have to say that the real work as a project management. And if you are going to see the advance, if you the company relies on you to handle a big project, then definitely what comes is you should have a priority. The real work matter. It can be easy to see project management as a function that's all overhead and no return. This is especially true when you first start to make use of the approaches and practices. but you can be rest assured that your project management work will become much easier with practice. That's what we say that an expert, right? Any task, it is not only for the project management, any task when you become an expert, when it is about that you practice it and you practice the principles. Even if project management really was a boring, tedious and difficult as some people assume it to be, it would still be worth doing. The reason I believe this point to be fundamentally true, because at the end we need project managers. We can't just have the team. It's not possible, because at the end the people are involved, and as I told, different people have a different styles, and just people can't come together and finish a project. It is never going to happen in that way. Then second is main point is people problems can't be solved with software. I think all of you will agree with me. With all the modern technology now, all the techniques and everything, but at the end people are complicated. People issues are different. Different people. I have an experience that the same team which I have led, from which I have worked as a project manager in one software team, and the same set of people does not perform at the same level in another project. So this kind of behavior is very complex. When you start work on a new project, look at the situation and identify the people and the process problems separately. This is the where I think when we come to the expert project management, I want to again and again emphasize that yes, basic project management we all do, like we make an Excel, we define a to-do list, we have issues identify. But when it comes to success in the project management, when we talk about the expert project management, the success of the project rate becomes high. That is why, because we are aware of the people's behavior and we motivate them and enhance the team building, teamwork processes. So first of all, when you come, you are being given a big project or a small team or a big team. First of all, you need to identify the people issues. I really believe it, and it has to be separate. For example, I had a team where initially I've been given a freshers. Again, I'm talking about the software product to be built within a given time from the client, and the freshers, they were not very confident, so there were a lot of issues. So first of all, we need to identify. Sometimes it could be a technical issues, like they are not confident about the technology and all those things. Sometimes it could be really conflicts. So these are the things which we definitely deal in detail, and I'm sure that you are going to enjoy this whole thing, because you will learn a lot of things which which can be practically applied. It is not about the technicality. I'm sure that as a project manager, as a basic level of we all do a scheduling, we all do a prioritization, but there are I even believe in day to day life, there are certain details. If we miss out that, our whole, it can become not so organized. So same applies to the project also. If you're not organized, if you're not disciplined, and if you overlook certain issues, your project will definitely will be a failure. Let's see what is the next one. All about the plan. Before moving into the planning part, I would like to understand that definitely as a project manager we are all aware that what is to be done, what is not to be done. But there is one simple point: if it doesn't add value to your project, then you should not do it, you should not plan it. That's what the basic step of the planning is. As you become more of a project manager, you will find you have a long list, and I have definitely faced this in major cases of the software project management. As a software project manager, always there will be some requirement from various departments of the client, and also there are some issues like because when we deal about the technical things, there could be some software configuration issues, there could be some tool upgradation issues. So all these things, I'm not saying that they are low priority, but as a project manager, as an expert project manager, the first and the primary thing when we are about to plan these things has to be have to be prioritized. Prioritizing is the basic step for achieving a good success rate for your project. That is the first thing. So when you say that, because you need to, when you include it in plan, unimportant things, you need to track it. So there is a lot of overhead which comes with that. Because when we say, so when track exactly how much time team members spend coding each new feature, detail exactly which budget element. So there are a lot of budget element is included, or it needs to be put in the costing of the project. So all these things matters. There are n number of example. I'm sure you will also have an example. For example, I can say that in practical sense, there are a huge project I used to handle, the redesigning of a framework, of the old framework to a new framework. In those cases, there are n number of things which comes as like, for example, whether we should first document all. Yes, documentation is important, but when the client has given you deadline and your team doesn't know the technology, so what you will prioritize first? So these angles, these things definitely need to be analyzed as a project manager. And I want to, just as an exercise, first think about your project, and have you ever prioritized which are adding value to your project and which items are not adding value to your project, and see your plan, and you can definitely be more efficient than ever. And one more thing is, the best tool is the one that works and gets used. I have always seen that when because various project, when we talk about the software or any other, because now the automation is everywhere, that IT department is running everywhere. So first of all, we come the organization spends a lot of money in investing on those tools, so that the life of the users become easy and the work is more efficient, so you have more return on investment. But my question is, when uh, I have seen, trust me, I have seen various clients or various clients of mine who have just, as an in the IT department, they just buy the tool, but when it comes to the usage, it's just, it becomes obsolete. They don't use it to the utility is very low. So again, as a project manager of your department, you have to see whether it is really going to be used or not. Just talking and just, yes, we will buy this, and then it's not getting used. So basically, like the lean principles of that states that we have to reduce waste, like that we have to eliminate all these kind of cost which can occur to the company, because we are not going to use it, you know. So there are many organization which they spend lot of amount in the name of productivity increase and buy some tool which are never going to be used. Again, there is one another point when we talk about planning, and definitely these planning and a lot of things which, because just planning, I have seen many project managers, they plan very well, and definitely they plan to the detail, and but when it comes to the communication to the team, they don't communicate. So they really definitely, I know, you can imagine the results. Because see, most of the time it is not intentional, because we don't as a project manager, there are n number of tasks in our task to be handled, but communication is the key, because many project managers fail in that. So as a expert, if you want to become an expert project manager, the best way is to communicate that, so that, or in an effective way, so that it gets you heard. Because I've seen many project managers, they don't have a effective communication. So the team won't understand it, and then it becomes really in day to day routine, it is very difficult. Choosing the right form, method, and content for your communication is hugely important to your project success. communication is an area in which it's particularly important to understand organizational culture. Which statement is really just management speak for the saying, or it is all having a what kind of jargon you will use when you will have meetings, and what kind of email structure you have, because everything is dependent upon your organization culture also. I have seen, I will tell you one instance which has happened to me in a project. I have taken a vacation for 5 to 10 days due to some personal reason in my project. My project leader, then she has to handle that whole project. But what happened that she was really planning very well, and she was technically very good. But the major failure happened and the client has escalated is that the communication was not happening. The client was not knowing that we were really doing work. So this one part is very important, because when it comes to project manager, the whole entire team, there are a lot of dependencies created day by day. So it is very important that you need to analyze and you need to groom your next level also on the, because it can happen, right? Like you can move, you can be transferred to different project, different department. So then what you will do, so these are the minute level of details that matters for the project success. Then again, the last, which is definitely a very important point, that you have to choose your tools and the processes right. That is the primary. Like for planning, some because if you are having if you are going to handle a large team of 50 to 100 team members, then the planning just in Excel won't help. And I'm sure again it is also dependent on the organization structure. For example, in some companies they have inbuilt a software tool which tracks also, like you plan in a Microsoft project, and the people put their time on the WBS, on actually how much hours they have worked in each task. Then you can generate reports, and accordingly it also can generate the budgeted, the cost of the project. So all these things you can do it in a tool. So when you it comes to the tool, sometimes I have taken tools, for example the client, it depends on the client also, like if they were not understanding a requirement in a just word doc format. Again, I'm talking about the software project. So in that sense, what happens, just you give the they won't come back that we don't understand. So the it was delaying the whole process of requirement sign off. So we just approached the client and understood the problem. So then we took the visual tool where we can make certain diagrams in an activity. Certain clients are comfortable with the diagrams. So all these things definitely is the work of the project manager, where he or she sees whether there is any lag in the process, and or any tools which are getting underutilized, and accordingly you can just implement those in your project. Again, if we talk about the processes, so when it comes to the process, the main point when it comes for the team, it's important that there are certain critical processes for certain types of project. For example, if the client is paying you, I'm again talking about the software product, that if your client is paying you per hour or on those basis, so then time and material basis, the contract is like that, then definitely it is important to have timesheets of your resources who are billable. So all these things, so certain projects I have seen that the project managers miss all these things, and it becomes very not so organized, and then it becomes very chaotic on day to day life. These are some of the examples. I'm sure you will have your own story, you will have your own practical applications. So just check, just analyze that in your project, what are the process lags you have, and what will be the prioritization you will do for getting this project into an effective manner. Now I will ask you a question, and you have to answer it diligently and analyze. Have you ever failed in project planning? Just think about it. I'm sure practically, as a humanly, it is not possible that we are always, and that too when we start as a project manager, it's not possible that we are always successful. It's not possible because we could have overlooked certain areas, we could have underestimated our project or overestimated our project. And also planning comes with an expert judgment, because when I can talk about the software projects wherein there are certain new technologies involved, and sometimes as expected we can't in execution we can also go wrong, because the resources might not be available, or we would have thought about design something and it has changed. So all these comes in the picture. And also planning is, I'm again talking about the software scenario. Planning hugely depends on the client requirement also. If your client requirements keep on changing, then definitely it is, then your plan becomes weak. Because I have seen many times in my project management, when I have taken project management work for large projects. So in such cases, certain times the client himself or herself is not clear about certain requirements. They are not clear about certain requirements, and they keep on changing the requirements. So all these things have definitely high impact on our planning, because our planning is not then study. So I just want to think about it. Have you any time done over or underestimation? I'm sure it happens. So I just want you to list down those things and see what you have done. Because again, I'm just emphasizing on the point that when we say that we are expert project managers, we have to learn from our failures. Because at the end, failures are inevitable. And like all the successful people say that we have to learn from the failures, then how that's how we become an expert or successful, right? So if you have failed in the project planning, please analyze whether you have overestimated or underestimated. Or it might happen in practical situation, I'll tell you, that you would have overlooked certain issues. Because sometimes I have literally, or I have also practically experienced it, that in some project, for example, we can take a simple web designing project. So when we talk about web designing, then there are a lot of interface which comes in. And now the world is moving into the digital world, right? Like everybody is online, and definitely the companies are more focusing on their website more than ever before, because to reach out to millions of people across the world, across the globe. So when we talk about such a website designing project, so what is now the current trend is that we need to put SEO or the digital marketing keywords, so that more people get their pages in the Google search. So all these things have come up. So when we talk about it, so definitely when we talk about the content, I'm sure there are project managers who have dealt digital marketing projects, so online projects. So when we talk about the website designing, one is the interface, and nowadays the content becomes very important, because the website is the face of the company digitally online. So it has to be represented very well, so that even you get more clients on the basis of your website content, your B log, what products you're offering, and what services you can give. And at the end, it is about, because they are new to your company's name. If you're a startup, then these things definitely have an impact. So what I'm saying is, in those kind of, when we are building website for a startup, if you say, the brand becomes very important, because many companies don't know the company name. So in those places, you need to know how to present the content. So project planning can fail in those areas if we have not properly planned the content well, or the user is expecting, your client is expecting something else. Because startups usually, because they have just started, so they don't have a clear vision, depends on the client to client basis. Again, it is according to your own personal basis, what experience you have project to project. But certain times we can fail in the planning if the client does not know what exactly the website content should be, or he's not clear about he or she is not clear about the digital, how it should, we should go online. So in those cases, we need not to worry, we can collaboratively work with the client. And yeah, we can work on an agile model where we can try prototypes, and then just release it out and see the responses, and then you can make changes. So don't worry. Yes, I'm talking about this as a simple scenario. In website design also, if the interface, regarding the interface, some people like it very flashy or the design perspective. Some people will like it very subtle, very professional. It also depends on the domain the client is in, right? If it is an entertainment industry, it is a different design people will prefer. And if it is another professional side, so it all depends on the client, which domain they are in. So when we talk about failure in project planning, it mainly occurs due to frequent changes, requirement changes. And if there is no clarity in the requirement itself, then how can you plan? If because the planning fits can occur only if proper planning can occur only if the scope is very well defined. You are very clear what you want to deliver. So and that is one thing. And second thing is, the project planning can also in technical part, I'm talking about whether we see about NASA or any other case study, then there is a lot of technicalities involved. So in some stages, the complexities were underestimated. In such cases also, the planning can go wrong. So don't worry, we have solution for everything. And as an expert, we'll learn things and we'll see how we can make it clear, and how we can be organized so such things can be avoided, or we can have some judgment so that future projects we handle it well.